Good evening. Thank you for attending the Marysville Board of Education regular meeting. Today is Thursday, January 15th. Time is 6 o'clock p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Callett?
Here.
Ms. Mabry?
Here.
Ms. Shepherd?
Here.
Mr. Ferguson?
Here. Thank you. May you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a recommendation to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved in second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Was that Ms. Mabry the second?
Yes, it was.
Ms. Mabry?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes. The agenda is adopted. Next is our public participation. I do not believe we have anyone signed up tonight. I will now turn it over to Dr. Howard to introduce our presentation from the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Union County.
Yes, thank you, President Ferguson. So tonight, board, we have Randy Bargo Smith, who is with the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Union County, Youth Systems of Care Director, or serves rather as the Care Director. And she is here to present on the Project Aware grant and a lot of the great things that are going on in our school district.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for having us today. We're super excited to just share quickly a couple of the big initiatives that we have been partnering with Marysville Schools, and I've asked Mark Gallagher to join me because he's going to be able to talk probably more intelligently about some of the specifics of what's happening with some of the initiatives. So thanks so much for the time. So today's focus, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of high-level overview. What are some of the things that we've done in partnership with Marysville Schools? What are some of those outcomes? And what has the funding, investment, and sustainability plan of that looked like? So if you've seen anything in the news the past 36 hours, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster that has ended in good news. So we're excited that that is a little bit more of increased sustainability. So for historical context, again, we're going to talk about just several things that are supporting the behavioral health of students in Marysville Schools, but I want to make it very clear that Marysville Schools has been committed to behavioral health services for quite a long time with Marysville Schools, and particularly Mark Gallagher and Dr. Howard, and just their leadership in demonstrating the importance of this support for students and families. So it was a 4-year grant. The total was about $7.1 million. So we've partnered very closely with Marysville Schools, Fairbanks, and North Union, in addition to some of those other school districts that touch our county but aren't entirely in Union County. So our goals were to increase access to services and supports, do what we could to support either the establishment or the expansion of a comprehensive school-based mental health system, and then be able to focus on prevention, early intervention, treatment services, and then do what we could to fill the toolboxes of all of our professionals that serve students and families, knowing that they are going to be the folks that are remaining well beyond this grant period. So why was this so important at this time? When we look at countywide data from 2024 and 2025 OYES survey, in Union County, about 24.4% of students surveyed reported experiencing symptoms of anxiety, 14.3% self-reporting depression symptoms, and then about 17.4% of those students that were surveyed identifying with a mental health symptom of some kind. So obviously it's touching a lot of our students, a lot of our families, and it's critical that we're responding and we have a continuum of supports available for them. So this is just looking kind of broadly over the first 3 years of Project Aware where we have made some impact. So if you look in the bottom left-hand corner here, increased awareness, when we look at from year 1 to year 3, those students that have been referred to a mental health service. So starting in year 1, there were 506 all the way up to 978 in this past year of our grant. And these are students in their 3 focused school districts. And then when we look at workforce development, in this past year, we've been able to train over 978 professionals. And then looking at screenings, I would say Marysville Schools is the rock star of this, but this is critical. When we look at year 1, there were only about 3,700 screenings happening of students' behavioral health needs, all the way to over 17,000 in this past year. So that's not individual students, but that could be a student taking a different screening or taking a screening at 2 different times in the school year. But this is critical when we think about our students that are internalizing some of these behavioral health needs versus outwardly presenting that. So this allows us to identify and reach those students that might not otherwise be identified. So we do have also a copy of our annual impact report on this back table because I realize these are very small. Participants identified an increase in knowledge as a result of attending a training that was offered through this grant.
Yeah, I can speak to some. So we've had a wide range of outcomes that we've been able to attain as part of our partnership with the Mental Health and Recovery Board, particularly through Project Aware. And that includes early identification of student needs when it comes to mental and behavioral health services, having very clear pathways to how students receive behavioral health services, from mental health to substance use misuse. We've worked very diligently to reduce barriers to care for students to access care, so ensuring that we have school-based services available to families that are no cost to them, while also having designated partnerships with other organizations around the county and in our region. We've also gone out of our way to provide very targeted professional development opportunities to our staff around the mental health and behavioral health of young people, as well as having a wide range of consultative services that we've been able to bring in, ranging from Danny Bauer, who's an educational thought leader, to providing professional learning around positive behavior intervention supports, as well as even contracting services for a board certified behavioral analyst as well. We did have some positions that we funded specifically through the Project Aware grant, and then we have a wide range of prevention programming that we've funded, from various training programs to implementation resources, curriculum materials, etc., at our school buildings. And we have a number of other programs that we've been able to have funded in partnership with the Mental Health and Recovery Board through the Project Aware grant, including trainings for the PACS Good Behavior game, funding seats and service trainings for the Ruling Our Experiences Girls program for girls in grades 4 through 12, and even including substance use prevention programming like the Too Good for Drugs program in our elementary and intermediate spaces. In the school-based social worker front, our 2 student success coordinators, Mackenzie and Janae, are incredible assets for our team. That just through the course of this year, they've served approximately 172 students in individualized sessions at Creekview and the high school, as well as 106 students being served in small group services. And then we've covered a range of 8 different topics, from life skills to relationship building skills to healthy choices within those small groups. So a pretty significant footprint in those 2 particular buildings amongst Janae and Mackenzie. She also supports specialized learning classrooms across the organization, and providing professional learning and technical assistance within our buildings as well. So she does an immense amount of work for us on the behavioral front. If you're curious, a board certified behavioral analyst typically will conduct conduct functional behavior assessment and develop intervention plans for students with behavioral needs in order to best support them. As part of her work, we've been in the process of developing basically recipe cards for practices that have research-based efficacy in supporting the behavioral health needs of young people, from children to adolescents and teenagers, and we are preparing to hopefully take these into production for the 26-27 school year as we kind of round the corner and wrap that up through this second semester this year. Okay, do you want me to keep going? I can talk about safety care. Yeah, I'll keep going. Another initiative that we've been able to fund through the Project Aware grant is safety care. Safety care is what's considered a nonviolent crisis prevention and intervention program and training. Staff members that go through this training learn everything from verbal de-escalation techniques to how to manage, my nonverbal communication in an interaction with an escalated young person to, in some instances, and we have the ability to make the training modular, training our staff on how to use safe physical management procedures with young people, and if that is warranted. And just through our initial implementation this year, we trained 92 staff members. We're up to 126 staff members now that have gone through this training, pre-K through 12 at Marysville schools. What we like about it is aligned to positive behavioral and intervention supports, as well as just being aligned with what we're all about here at Marysville schools, with maintaining student dignity, et cetera. So we've grown that network of trainers over time, and we've continued to grow the number of professionals that we train on that program in our organization. Okay, do you want to talk about the others?
And one of the things I'll just quickly add when looking at something like those recipe cards that the Marysville Schools team has really worked hard to develop, it might seem normal to you guys because that's the Marysville way. Your leadership is really good at systematizing things and putting a structure around them so that they can get these tools out to the whole staff. But that's actually super innovative, and I think everybody that hears this is happening is like, wow, this is amazing. How do we get this to other districts? So I just want to applaud your leadership and the folks at Marysville Schools because they're doing tremendous work. So training for education professionals throughout the county, we've been able to provide kind of a host of that. I shared some of those numbers in the beginning, but some of the highlights are some specific evidence-based, group-based Tier 2 interventions. So that includes cognitive behavioral interventions for students that have experienced trauma. We have a non-clinical version of that for the high school, secondary level for training. We've trained your elementary staff in zones of regulation, PAC's good behavior game. We had the Kid Whisperer come in and work with a full elementary staff. And then we've hosted a Changemakers Conference for 2 years now with a full day of just tremendous professional development. And we've had a number of different Marysville staff members attend, so we've been really grateful for that. And then here we wanted to talk a little bit about the investment piece. So just to give you a sense of some of the pieces and what that cost looks like from a grant perspective. So from September 2023 to December 2025, it's been that $195,678.79 that we've allocated directly to Marysville schools to be able to contract for things, to do service agreement for licensure, for programs to support the behavioral health of Marysville students. It's been around $208,000 from the grant for the school navigation services, and that is because they're able to bill some services, but students and families do not incur a cost from that. And then it was $303,971.58 per year for those 3 specific positions that we talked about, the 2 student success coordinators and the board certified behavior analyst. So it is a significant investment, but we have been just so impressed and excited about the type of outcomes that we've seen. And it's just a testament, I think, to the partnership, and we appreciate it very much, and we're really excited to see continued support and continued positive outcomes for Marysville families. So happy to take any questions, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. I'll open the floor up. Mr. Keller?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was very good information. I think one thing I'm asking myself as a dad up here, if I'm a dad and my child's involved with this program, what does this look like? Are all these services at school? Is it away from school? Is it a combination of both? What does that look like for me as a dad and my child?
I can speak to that. So it always starts with an informed consent process. So no services are provided without parents being involved in the decision-making process for their young people. And the services can be a combination of things. It can be school-based services, but then they can also receive outpatient services through Maryhaven or even one of the other providers within the county. We're able to link services that way as well, even including telehealth services like through an organization like Charlie Health. So it really depends upon what the needs of the child are and what the wishes of the family are, and then we work with them to help coordinate and refer based upon where we land in that equation. Yeah.
Is it, if I'm a parent that may struggle to take my child to appointments outside of school, you said telehealth. Yep. Can there be an agreement where the outside professionals working with them at a carved out time at school to support their needs? Does that happen at all?
We have not done that, mainly because the telehealth provider we like to work with, Charlie Health, is able to provide telehealth-based outpatient services from 12 p.m. till midnight, Monday through Saturday. So they have immense flexibility within their schedule in order to facilitate the needs for that particular young person. But no, we haven't done that traditionally, but I'm not opposed to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add specific to Project Aware, so there's the school-based services that are funded, but we do fund an array of services at the community level as well. And so if families are asking themselves that, our website specifically for youth-based services is www.mosaicu.org, and they can find a lot of information there, from specialized programs to early childhood mental health consultation to resources for treatment in our provider directory. So a lot more folks are welcome to call us at the Mental Health and Recovery Board too, and we're always happy to talk through individual needs and get folks connected to the right service.
Just as a former educator, helping build the connections for families to support kids' needs, whether it's in school, out of school, I applaud you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yeah, so thank you. It was a great presentation. I enjoyed hearing it and reading through it. One question about staff. Have staff shared like how they feel about the trainings or the support they're receiving, and if it's making a difference for them in the classroom?
Yeah, I'm happy to share some information, and then Mark might have some additional as well. So after each of our trainings, we have done surveys to understand, are they learning? Do they like it? What are they looking for? So yes, absolutely. We've had tremendous success in 97% saying that they're leaving with additional knowledge and skills. We've also done rounds of staff interviews related to student behavioral health and what is needed. And we've tried to be as responsive as we can with ongoing grant years of how do we meet those specific needs that the teachers are sharing. But I would say we've had extremely positive feedback. I think there's never enough because obviously, kids and families are struggling. It's a difficult time right now. Lots of folks are struggling with mental health. And, we know that teachers are responding to a lot of those needs in the classroom. So we're certainly working hard to fill the toolboxes. And I think the feedback we've gotten has been very positive.
Yeah, so I'll speak to safety care just because I'm like our head safety care trainer for the district along with my team. We've done a lot of trainings this year, and just even after the first year of training with our team here, small group of professionals, we're talking 20 individuals that included principals, intervention specialists, special education teachers, and classified aides as well that serve our specialized learning classrooms. The ask immediately after that initial training was, how do we get this training to more people in our organization? And every single time we host a training, and they're small, intimate trainings, no more than 10 professionals per a trainer, et cetera. The request always is, how do we get this training to more of our professionals? Because I'm learning things here that are extremely valuable to me as an educator, and I know are going to help me better serve the young people that I serve.
That's great. And then could you briefly explain like the tiered system of support and kind of what programs might fall under the different levels?
Yeah, all right. I'm going to try to do my mental map here. So if we talk through tiered supports, tier one are supports that are accessed by every single individual in our school district. So like the PACS Good Behavior Game is a great tier one support. It's a program that can be implemented with all kids, right? It's essentially how to use evidence-based practices that are trauma-informed in order to better support our children and create a classroom that is warm and nurturing and in terms of a learning environment. So that would be like a tier one program. A tier two program, which one step up in intensity, would be like small group work. So if we were working on or providing services for a friendship group, or if we were doing services for, let's say, anxiety or depression, or maybe I'm a school counselor and I'm running a group for students that are working through loss and grief right now. That is a small group, intimate setting, but it's not the whole group. That would be a tier two support. Tier three supports are highly individualized to the young people that are involved in those services. So that might be a referral to the school navigation program or one of our student success coordinators. So very, very individualized. It also may result in a referral to like an external service like Charlie Health, or maybe it's a situation with disordered eating and I'm referring to a very particular therapist or clinician here in town because they specialize in disordered eating. So that would be an example of a tier three support. To turn that around using our board certified behavior analyst as an example, tier two services would be like small group services provided at the building. But if I'm making a referral for behavioral assessment, behavior intervention planning for a young person, that would be like a tier three type service that our board certified behavior analysts would coordinate. Mm-hmm.
I have a couple questions. So we started the presentation about the Marysville schools are doing a great job before. Can you kind of, from a staffing perspective or a program perspective, what did Marysville schools do before Project Aware? And then what did we increase? And then kind of the road forward, because this is a grant. I believe this is the last year of the grant, and kind of if we can kind of walk down that path, what does it look going forward?
Yeah, so I'll start us off by saying we have a very rich history of being awarded substantive state and federal grants in this county in partnership with our mental health and recovery board, this school district, and other entities within the community. I don't see that changing anytime soon where we're sitting. We're very much committed to pursuing competitive funding streams in order to support these initiatives and stretch our local dollars as much as humanly possible. In terms of staffing, when we initiated this work, and we got to go 4 years ago, we had 2 school navigators serving our entire school district, K through 12. It's actually the 2 ladies that are our student success coordinators. So they have a rich history with this community to begin with. So they knew many of our families, many of our kids. They were to build relationships with them. So we started with just those 2. And each year I've gone back to the table and try to make the case for additional staffing for Marysville schools, given the size of our school district and the needs of our young people in order to better meet those needs. And so we have a little bit of a split in terms of who has who from a personnel standpoint. So some are, ESC employees to the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. Those would be the 3 positions we have staff and contracted right now. And then our school navigators are through Mary Haven as well. So we started very small and we've grown over time and continue to use competitive funding streams to make that happen.
And I would say too, obviously, as Mark said, the Mental Health and Recovery Board is very committed to continuing to pursue grant funding, but also school navigation, which are currently those 4 behavioral health professionals that are dedicated to Marysville schools. That is the core service for the Mental Health and Recovery Board. So despite funding challenges or whatever may arise, we will be doing our best to ensure that that service remains at the level that it is, because we know that connection to school and community-based services is critical for kids and families.
The other thing I wanted to tack on with, in terms of longevity and sustaining programs, at least in the social work front, there's currently work being done to enable school-based social work services to be Medicaid reimbursable. So that will assist with funding long-term, and there's lobbying currently going on for ABA therapeutic type services, which would be through a board-certified behavioral analyst to also be Medicaid reimbursable as well, which will assist with longevity.
Thank you. I think I read a paragraph about maybe an example of a student, how these programs kind of help not only the mental health, but also student achievement. Could you touch on that? I think it's about a middle school student who it's on the Creekview and Marysville High School slide. Maybe because a lot of the things we do, it's in an effort to not only have healthy students, but also to help them grow academically. If you could touch on that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are actually success story examples that came directly from your student success coordinators. So, and like Mark said, they have been in the district now for eight years, I think. Both of them have been working in Marysville schools for about 8 years. So they are just phenomenal. And so here, Mackenzie talks about a middle school student that had a history of mental health and academic challenges, some anxiety, self-harm, some sensory challenges, and had frequent emotional distress and difficulty managing at the middle school level. And then over working with the student for the course of the year, she saw significant progress, and she talks about some of those skills, self-advocacy, identifying coping strategies, and working on self-regulation. So some of those things she's working individually with the student on a regular basis. And so she also saw improvement throughout the year in attendance, social skills, family engagement, and checked in with the student kind of towards the end of the year, feeling positive about their school experience. They have joined a supportive peer group. They feel connected to other students, which wasn't necessarily the case before. And then when we look at that progress and advocacy, the student is actually now identified as gifted in reading. So what we do know from all the literature is when we support students' behavioral health, we're going to see tremendous academic outcomes as well. So it's really exciting too, because it's nice to look at specific examples like this. We don't often get to connect it to the student level, and that just brings to life that like all of those numbers and the other metrics, like every single one of them is a student, is a family. I love that you pointed that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Howard or Mr. Johnson, if you want to weigh in.
I just want to briefly say, Randy, thank you so much. Your support and leadership on behalf of the Mental Health and Recovery Board, and the synergy that you have with Mark too. Mark, there's a great partnership that exists, and so thank you both for your leadership.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. And if you want to enjoy the rest of your night, you're free to, or if you want to stay to hear more, please do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
But January is OSBA's Board Appreciation Month. And so we have certificates that are presented to you on behalf of the Ohio School Boards Association. And I have been hearing that we need some artwork over there, but right now we have a poster, Scaling New Heights, from Ohio School Board Association, which is their theme. And certainly serving on the Board of Education, it's a commitment. I know some of you are missing events. There's a swim meet. I know a board member in particular is not at tonight, that because of commitment to our student, our district, and our staff. So you are appreciated. Thank you very much. I also wanted to share a program that we're really ecstatic about starting here with your blessing. So I intend to talk about the introduction of the United States Army Junior ROTC program, and then I'll finish this evening by just talking about some communication updates with the Transportation Department. So first of all, again, very excited about JROTC, and you might ask, what exactly is that? It's Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. It's a federally supported school-based leadership program. It is not military recruitment, but it focuses on citizenship, character, leadership, and service, which I think are really strong attributes that this community really stands behind and supports. Mission of the United States Army JROTC, they exist to motivate young people to be better citizens. They're in this to develop leadership skills, personal responsibility, respect for authority, and civic engagement. And why ROTC here in Marysville? It helps us expand career and leadership pathways. The other thing that's great about this is that this is something that can be shared between the two high school campuses. So it's not unique to one, it's for our entire high school population. So really excited about that. Another thing is that it dovetails in really nicely with pathways that already exist, but it's yet another pathway for students that have not yet found their tribe or their niche for them to plug in. And so we're really excited about and preparing students for future readiness. There's a great opportunity for community partnerships here locally, assist with financial stability. One of the things that's nice about this program, I'll get into that, is that there's some funding that's offset by the government. And then safety and wellness. So student benefits, how do they benefit? Leadership and teamwork skills, confidence, self-discipline, physical fitness, wellness, public speaking, decision-making, community service opportunities, and then college and career readiness. So what it is not. One may think that, oh, this is a program to increase military enlistment, and that is not the case. There is no obligation whatsoever with that regard. There's no requirements to join the Army. We are looking at the U.S. Army JROTC, but there's no obligation or specific requirement unique to the Army. There's no weapons training, and it's inclusive to all students. So what are some of the components? There will be a classroom instruction piece centered around leadership, civics, and life skills. There is a physical fitness component to the program. Uniform is worn and it's provided by the government. Team activities, drill, color guard, academic leadership competitions, community service opportunities, and certainly it hits college and career readiness as well. So staffing model, we would need here in our district at least one, likely two retired certified Army instructors. And with that model, one of them would be assigned as the senior Army instructor. And then we would have an AI or simply Army instructor to lead the program. The instructors are background checked, they're professionally trained, and they have to be approved by the U.S. Army and our district. The cost structure makes this really enticing in that it's a shared funding model. So the United States Army will reimburse our district 50% of the instructor's salary. The district would recover the remaining salary as well as the benefits. The Army provides the curriculum for the program, uniforms at no cost to the students, and then the equipment that's needed to get the program up and running. So estimated district cost, if you would take the instructor salary, the net of the Army reimbursement, the classroom space, some minor setup, transportation for events as applicable, and really at the end of the day, the costs that we think we would incur from this would be very similar to what we have for other elective programs in our district. One of the things about becoming a recognized chapter is that we have to have a minimum enrollment threshold of 10% of our high school student population. So for that, we would take, the early college high school, the Marysville High School student population, combine that, we need 10%. But what is also nice is that if students in the eighth grade at Bunsold would take the Emerging Leader course as an elective, they would count toward that threshold. We don't anticipate that we'll have any issue reaching that 10% threshold. Once that is established and we've met that, then we would be approved as a charter, and then the Army will reimburse us retroactively for the initial year. For that 50 bear, we would have color guard there. It would be really awesome to have we would have color guard there. It would be really awesome to have our own students leading those at some of our own events, not to mention getting in the community and supporting those initiatives too. So measures of success, we think we could look back on this and see that we have enrollment and we're able to retain those students in the program. Student attendance and behavioral data should improve for those that participate. You can see that nationally in the analysis of this program. It has positive graduation outcomes. There are student leadership positions that are available. It's largely student-led, and it's designed so that way students take leadership roles within the program. And then certainly community service hours. So we think it's a great way for our district to kind of align or tether to the community. And so I apologize because I know this is it's too small to read on the screen, but I'll read them out loud. So we've reached out to some other communities that have these programs, and some of the commonly asked questions are, is it a military recruitment program? And I just want to reiterate, no, it is not. There's no obligation to enlist. There's no student contact with recruiters that's required. The program focuses, again, on leadership, citizenship, and personal responsibility. Do students have to join the military after ROTC? Again, no. There's no military service requirement. Most junior ROTC graduates pursue college careers or technical training. Are weapons used or taught? No weapons training is involved. There are drill activities that use inert, non-functioning equipment, but that is specific for ceremonial purposes, if at all. And then who can enroll in JROTC? The great thing about it is all students can. It's eligible for all students regardless of background, athletic ability, or future plans. Does it replace academics? Not at all, but it is a 4-credit elective that complements, doesn't replace the core academic instruction. And then again, what does it cost the district? They will reimburse us up to 50% of the instructor's salary. They provide curriculum, materials, students' uniforms. So a lot of the costs that we think we may incur to establish a program would be covered. And then what happens if the enrollment drops? Well, we would continue to monitor our enrollment annually and work with the Army in our recruitment and modify our sustainability strategies as necessary. So I'll pause there because that's kind of what I had to share with regard to the JROTC program, but board are really excited about this potential.
Open the floor for questions. Board Member Shepherd?
You mentioned that it would be across both high schools. Is there thoughts yet if it would be how, like you'd go to one for class, or they would be at both buildings?
So we would have yet to design that, but so if you take a 10% threshold of our student population of both, it would require 2 instructors. So one of them would be housed at Bunsold for probably 2 sections, I think is what we're looking at toward the end of the day. And then that person in the AM could be at either early college or the high school. The other person would be at the high schools entirely.
And roughly what is 10% of our high schools?
Yeah, so each class, you're looking at just roughly 450, 400. But so in our minds, we have to have at least 160 students between the 2 high schools. And again, we think that'll be easy given that we also get to count the 8th grade population because it's offered for high school credit.
Thank you.
Mr. Keller?
I just was curious, this might be a question for you, Todd, more. Is there the opportunity for additional state funding for this type of course like this?
I don't know that, not to put Kara on the spot, she knows more about the CTE funding than I do with regard to how the coding. I don't believe that there is, but certainly we would pursue that if it was a possibility.
I think this is a great idea. One question, I know I'm just looking at the Education Ohio. I'm sorry, I just got this question just now. Homeschool students can participate, it looks like. Would that be, I know we have a board policy about homeschool students participating in some some classes and extracurriculars. Would this qualify?
It would. It'd be an elective offering, just like marching band and some of the others that we offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it looks like you also, if you fulfill all the requirements of your RTC, you have a military seal in your graduation certificate. So that's kind of, I guess, an extra benefit as well.
Agreed. And also learned, too, that if you do enlist in the military and you go through basic, and I know you retired military, you know more about this than I do. However, I know that you end up with a higher rank going through that because you had gone through that initially in high school. So for those that do go into the military, there's also a benefit for those kids too.
I'm not retired. I just only did 4 years, but and I did the United States Marine Corps. I wish there was unfortunately it'll be the Navy ROTC. That's just not as cool as the Army. I do think this is a great program. Can you speak to, I think I saw a story on Journal Tribune about kind of a student interest already and some student voice helping kind of push this.
Yeah, so we had, it was a couple weeks back. Kenna, if you don't mind, I'll have you pop up and help maybe on this too. We had, and if you can maybe explain to the board about the visit that was taken. But we've had some students reach out to the building principals about wanting to establish this program. And our student at Early College High School, he's got a really incredible military background, family, and students like him, and there's several of them just like that. They know exactly what it is that they want to do. They know that they want to go into the military too. And so while this is not a military-specific program, it's certainly helpful for students that know that that's their path up front. And there was a really good article in the Journal Tribune that highlights a student, and so we're grateful for that as well. But Ken, could you maybe just talk about the site visit that you guys took?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it kind of generated, I'll give Mr. Bennett the credit at ECHS, but it came from an early college student that brought it up to him. And Mr. Bennett called me, and for years and years we've been exploring JROTC. We feel like there's so much value for our students, and we said, let's do this, let's pursue it, learn more. We went with Bill Wells to visit Kenton on site and took a look at their programming, spent several hours there at Kenton High School, dug in, looked at all of the things that Dr. Howard brought up, and we just felt like it was worthwhile to bring it back to Dr. Howard and explore it further for our buildings and look at a comprehensive approach for our kids. So we're very, very excited about it as a possibility.
Thank you. That's very nice to see a kind of a student voice and advocacy kind of influencing potential curriculum path or pathway for students to learn. Something we always talk about is how do we elevate student voice, but it's kind of hard to, in my view, kind of hard to figure out how does that look practically speaking in the work of the Board of Education. And I think this is a great example. And so I know we have a student in the crowd. He's getting his Eagle Scout, and so this is kind of a cool way to you know, a potential you can become an advocate in your school and see some positive movement. So thank you, Mr. Chafin and Dr. Howard. From a board action standpoint, could you talk about how do we make this official?
Yeah, later on this evening, under the superintendent recommendations, there is an addendum to the course of study guide for 4 courses that you did already approve in December, but these would be an addendum to that course registration guide. Really, at this point in time, what we need is to have you approve those. Our principals at the high schools and the middle school, they are ready, pending this evening's decision on that, to start sharing this opportunity for students and try to determine, excitement toward the program, and we can move forward. But if it's okay, board, I also wanted to share just a really quick update. So believe it or not, we are starting to plan for transportation and procedures into the next school year, and you can really never start too early. And so there's going to be a lot of communication that goes out between now and the end of the school year, so that way we have everything documented and a plan in place. There's 2 forms that I wanted to call the board's attention to and give the community a heads up that it'll be coming. One is going to be an address and it's not going to be in lieu of, it's going to be address in replacement of. So it's going to be a replacement address, and simply what that means is I live at one particular address, but each day, morning and evening, I get picked up at another one. It could be grandma's, could be aunts and uncles, and so that would be a form that would be completed. There's another one. It's a morning and afternoon address form. So this would be if every day I get on the bus at home, but I get dropped off at an alternate location in the PM, we would know that it's going to be the home address, but we're going to need to know that it's the afternoon address is different. So we're starting to get these forms and communication out. Families should start receiving those tomorrow. So thank you, board.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. Are there any questions from board members? Hearing none, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Treasurer Johnson.
Okay. Well, if you're hoping for a report that's entirely statistics, here you go. So each year about this time, the State Department of Education releases what's known as the CUP report. And for the last several years, we've been keeping up the community and board updated on how do we fare compared to other districts in the CUP report. So that's what this report is. I hit what I consider to be the big topic items on there. If somebody really wants to dig in, there's a ton of data on there. You can go to the Ohio Department of Education website, or I can send it to you. It's a spreadsheet with all kinds of data. It includes all 606 districts in the state and just shows, how all those districts compare on various factors. First fact, and also I did give you a handout, so in case some of these things are small, too hard to look at, you can see them in the handout as well. So first off, looking at revenue per pupil. State average is $18,300 compared to Marysville schools at $12,700. If you look at the average compared to last year, only a slight increase statewide, a couple $100, whereas as a district, we actually decreased by about $600 compared to the prior year. We're about $5,600 below average, and we're actually the second lowest revenue per pupil district in the entire state. So out of 606 districts, we're number 2 at the bottom. The only district below us is Wheelersburg. Last year, I think we were 19th. So we actually dropped down from 19th to second lowest in the state. And feel free to interrupt with questions throughout. So you don't have to wait till the end, by the way. So when I look at that number, there's such a big gap, between us and just the state average. And again, we're comparing to the state average. We're not comparing to the top districts in the state in terms of revenue per pupil. So, that gap of $5,600, it would take probably around 15 mills just to put us up around the average. So just I point that out just for perspective because I know there's a lot of people, especially right now, looking at their tax bills. Tax bills are going up, but even with that, we're well below the state average on that revenue per pupil.
Mr. Johnson, but can we just set the table? Is this is with last year's revenue?
This is prior to the levy.
Prior to the levy.
So
Okay.
when we do this next year, we'll be above second. If I were to project, which is hard to do because all districts will change, we will probably move up to somewhere around the 30th or 40th lowest in the state, even with the levy.
Thank you.
So CUP report gives you all districts. I take that, and this is why I gave you the handout because this is a little hard to read, but I take that and just look at Central Ohio districts, and we've just used the same district for the last however many years, just to show where we've changed or not changed in comparison to Central Ohio. So as you obviously, if we're second lowest in the entire state, we're going to be the lowest in Central Ohio by a pretty significant margin. Turning from revenue, looking at expenditure per pupil. State average is $17,600, whereas our average is $13,700, so $3,900 below average on expenditure per pupil. As you can see, the state average increased by $1,300 per pupil. That's so spending increased by $1,300 on average, where our spending increased by $60. Last year, we were the 103rd lowest on expenditure per pupil in the state. This year, we dropped down to the 48th lowest. So we're in the bottom 8% in the entire state for expenditure per pupil. And then looking at, again, at Central Ohio, this was the same as last year, second lowest in Central Ohio. Only Hamilton Local Schools is lower. Administrative expenditure per pupil, we pull this one out because there's always the, I guess, stereotype of schools are spending all their money on administrators. I think this shows that Marysville does a pretty efficient job with administrative spending. State average this year was $2,300. Marysville Schools was only $1,500, so we're over $800 below average. And then you can also see the state average increased by $120 from last year, whereas we increased by only $50. We have the 30th lowest admin expenditure per pupil in the state, again putting us in the bottom 5%. And then for Central Ohio, second lowest in Central Ohio on administrative expenditure per pupil. Student-teacher ratio, state average didn't change. It's still 20, and our average our number stayed the same again as at 26. So we're 6 above average. So that puts us with the 4th highest student-teacher ratio in the state out of 606 districts. I will point out we're tied with several other districts with that 26 number. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 districts that we're tied with. But again, puts us in the top 1% for number of students per teacher. And then for Central Ohio, again, second highest compared to Groveport. Madison is the only one with a higher number than us.
Todd, I was just curious here as I look at these. This is great information. It appears to me like when you say Central Ohio, everyone's on there and or neighboring districts to us. But I was wondering if you ever look at similar districts, like what the state says is a similar district to us and what that data looks like.
I have done that, and that is available. I mean, you could pull in other districts and say, well, what about Lancaster or what about Marion? So there's a lot of other ways you could look at it. It's all in there. From when it comes to most of these factors, because we're in the top, few in the entire state, whether you're looking at similar districts or Central Ohio or whatever, the data is not going to change. When you're at number 2 in the entire state, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But there's other factors where you're right, that where if you looked at similar districts versus Central Ohio, you might see some variations.
If, I'm not suggesting you do it, but if you ever look at that data, I would be interested to
Mm-hmm.
see it with what the state says, here's the similar districts to Marysville and what we look like compared to, that'd be interesting to look at. But again, I'm not asking you to do another thing.
Yeah. Local tax effort. So this doesn't resonate with everyone, but to me, this is a very pertinent statistic. I'll do my best to explain it. So simply what local tax effort does is it compares across every district, what is your ability to pay taxes, meaning how much money do you make, what is your property values in the district as a whole, compared to how much do you pay in school taxes? Okay, so a factor of 1 by definition is average. The average is not going to change, it's going to be 1 because it is a comparative statistic. So if you think about it, one way to look at that average of 1 is what the state would expect you as a taxpayer to pay for the local share of educating students, whereas the state would be paying, the state share. So Marysville Schools has a local tax effort of 0.42, well below that average of 1. That number has actually gone down compared to last year, so we have the 8th lowest local tax effort in the state of Ohio, whereas we were 12th lowest last year. And I guess the question would be, well, what does that really mean? And, for me, as somebody who lives here and I'm a taxpayer here, that means I'm in a pretty good spot. So 1, it means that we live in an area where we're able to have a pretty good living wage, and we have pretty good property values. And at the same time, it means that we live in a district that has relatively low taxes. Nobody likes any taxes, but if this is looking compared across the state, we have a low tax rate.
Mr. Johnson, so not to point everyone out, but our neighbors, North Union and Fairbanks, are high. They're at 1.53, 1.26. What is that? What does that say?
Yeah.
Are they?
So you have to dig into the details to determine why is a district higher or lower than us. So a couple ways to look at it. Considering we're the 8th? We're the 8th lowest. So if you look at the 7 districts that are actually lower than us, I don't believe any of those districts are districts where the tax rate is actually lower than us. Those are all districts that are considerably wealthier than us. So there's a district up near Cleveland area where the median income is $400,000. So if you think about what does tax effort mean, is how much effort am I making as an individual to pay my school tax bill? Well, if I'm making $400,000, the tax rate could be double ours, and it's still pretty easy for me to pay those taxes. That's why their tax effort is so low. So if you look across Central Ohio and how do we compare, obviously some of those districts from a relative wealth standpoint would be poorer than us. Some of them would be wealthier. But if you look at the 2 that have a lower local tax effort than us, you've got New Albany and Grandview Heights. Both of those districts have considerably higher tax rates than we do. Yet their local tax effort is lower because 2 factors. With New Albany especially, it's a higher income. Their average income is higher than a Marysville average income. Grandview Heights, that factor is in play as well, but it's also, if you look at their property values, they're considerably higher than ours. So 1 mill in Grandview Heights generates a lot more money than 1 mill in Marysville.
Yeah, Todd, I would love to see the hard data on this, like where they're pulling that from. Because this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I understand what you're saying. But just for example, my property taxes now, I'm looking at 68% of my total property taxes are going to the school.
Mm-hmm. This is looking at school taxes only. It's not because let's say your taxes were 0 and they went up by $1,000, you would say, wow, that's crazy. I don't want to pay $1,000 more in taxes. If your taxes were $5,000 and they went up by $1,000, you'd say the same thing. I don't want to pay $1,000 more dollars in taxes. So it's a matter of 2 things can be true. one, taxes are going up, and nobody wants to pay that increase, so that's a true thing. But this is a comparative across the state. Even though taxes are going up, it's still a really good deal to live in Marysville.
Okay, I'd still like to see the actual data that feeds these numbers.
I can send you the CUP report. I mean, again, they've pulled all the statistics. I don't know where they're getting, they're pulling the millage, they're pulling the,
Yeah, I just want to make sure that they're pulling all of the levies, like when we have all
Yeah.
the different levies, or are they just pulling certain levies?
no, it's all levies.
Because this just doesn't make any sense to me. So I would just like to see more data.
I can send you that.
And this local tax effort is actually a component of the school formula. Maybe you want, I know we don't want to, this is not a school
No,
finance
I'm
101
glad you
night,
brought that up, because I
but-
did want to talk about that. It's not specifically a component, but if you think about how local tax effort works, it does come into play when you look at state funding, because there's that state share index. So you look at what state share means is the state's assuming they're paying a certain share of what it costs to educate a student, but that means they're assuming there's a local component. So the local is paying a certain share as well. So when they look at your local tax effort, which means are you paying enough locally, if they assume that you can pay a lot locally, meaning you've got high incomes, you've got high property values, they're going to assume you can pay a larger number than, for example, a school in Southeast Ohio, where the average incomes are lower, property values are lower. So they're going to give more state money to the schools in Southeast Ohio, or an inner city school, compared to a school like us in the suburbs, high incomes, good property values. They're going to give us less state funding per school. And then we're going to talk a little bit later, our number keeps going up when it comes to what we can afford locally, because our property values are going up, our incomes are going up, and they're going up at a higher rate than what other school districts across the state are. Whereas if you look at our state funding, it's going to be dropping.
And just to that point, I would say property values are going up astronomically, but salaries are not.
Right.
Especially when you talk about 20% of our constituency are seniors over 65. So theirs are only going up at a COLA adjustment. So.
And that's
the state needs-
statewide.
Right,
That's
and the state
happening
needs to
everywhere.
take that into consideration.
Right.
And we need to fight back on that.
Yeah, and I'll point out here in a minute how they're not taking it into account, which is going to be detrimental. And finally, last bunch of numbers I'll hit you with. So none of these numbers really mean anything. It's because really what it's about is what are the results? What results are we getting for students? So performance index, if you look at the state average, 80.6. Marysville schools were well above that state average with 95.5. That puts us in the top 17% of all schools in Ohio. If you look at the performance index for Central Ohio, we're towards the top. We actually got passed by a couple districts this year. But we're still, it's still relatively close, even those ones that passed. They were slightly below, now they're just slightly above. I've brought up the question for the last several years of, our standing when it comes to performance index compared to, being the lowest revenue district in the state and towards the bottom when it comes to expenditure per pupil, and are we able to maintain that or not? And that's a question I can't answer, but it's something to consider.
So our performance index did not significantly slide despite our contingency plan that was in place. We kind of stayed the same. Is that what I'm seeing, or is this different data?
We actually increased by 1 point last year. And then I guess the question would be, when do you see the results of that? Would it be fiscal 25, or would we see that more in fiscal 26? I think you would see the more potential results in 26, but it's really not something that you just probably see all in 1 year.
Understood.
Yeah, the performance index data, it's in arrears. So
It's a lagging indicator, or you're saying it, never mind.
yeah, this year's performance on the state test will impact next year's.
I mean, it's an incredible thing to just at least stay or improve slightly, but it's not sustainable I mean, that's a lot of energy going to keep what we had. I just think it's a great kudos to our staff for at least, keeping where we're at, and we'll see where we're at come next year. But that's really good for the value that the lowest revenue per pupil in the state of Ohio. I think that's great.
And I want to also specify that the value added data is in arrears. So,
Yeah, and that's why we've always said you get a good bang for your buck in Marysville, because we do have pretty good results for what we're spending. So if I didn't put you to sleep with all the numbers, we'll go into a quick legislative update. So we'll bring it up. So I'll make this quick. This is just to discuss the impact of the property tax reform legislation that's recently passed. And so to talk about the new bills, first we need to look real quick at, well, why did they make those changes and what was in law before? So that would be House Bill 920. House Bill 920 was passed in 1976. It was passed to limit revenue from voted levies, so it limits the revenues district receives, and it was passed to prevent automatic tax increases for taxpayers based on inflationary value increases. Okay, so that was the purpose of House Bill 920. If you look at how it works, as property values increase, the effective millage decreases so that revenue stays about the same. And that's how you have a factor of voted millage versus effective millage. So if you look at Marysville schools, for example, our voted millage is around 50, but our effective millage is only 20. Okay, that's because of House Bill 920. As property values have went up over the years, our effective millage continues to go down. So why are we passing these new laws to impact property taxes when we already had House Bill 920? Well, because of that 20 mil floor, I guess I didn't get to that yet. So as property value, House Bill 920 created something called the 20 mil floor, which means that as effective millage decreases, they put a cap. And they said, well, we can't go any lower than 20 mils. So we're at 20 mils here at Marysville, so that means that as property values go up, we can't drop the millage any lower. So that means that as a taxpayer, when your property values go up, you're going to pay the full increase of that percentage. As a school district, we would receive the full revenue component of an inflationary increase in value, okay? So with House Bill 920, the only increases in revenue that a district would get would be from new construction and inside millage until you hit the 20 mil floor. So then once a district is on the 20 mil floor, property values go up, so do revenues, so do our tax bills, okay? And then so if you look at the reason why this legislation was passed, over half of the districts in the state are now on the 20 mil floor. And the majority of counties across the state are seeing double-digit percentage property value increases, which means their property taxes are going up by that same double-digit percentage. So that brings us to the laws that were placed to impact that property tax growth. So I'm going to talk about three bills. First, House Bill 186, that caps the growth for districts that are at the 20 mil floor. So what they decided to do was use a GDP, gross domestic product, deflation factor to cap the tax growth. So what they're saying is, even though your property values maybe went up 20, 30%, you're not going to get that. We're going to cap it based on a GDP deflation factor. Okay, and this is going to apply to counties undergoing reappraisal in 2025 and thereafter, which that would be us. Our reappraisal was 2025. It's going to retroactively apply to counties that were in reappraisal in 23 and 24. And if you've been following the law, you may have heard of the sales tax exemption and how they're going to use that money to help fund those districts. That will not impact us. That only impacts those districts that were in the 23 or 24 reappraisal, just to ensure they don't lose too much money. So, for example, Marysville schools, our reappraisal was about 26%. The GDP inflation factor is going to be 13%. So that means the revenue that we would have expected is cut in half. So they use a 3-year total for that GDP. From a forecasting standpoint, that's going to add another, I guess, variation component to forecasting, because that GDP factor is going to change. That's something we're going to have to make assumptions on, and that will keep the revenue down in future years of the forecast.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm missing something. How do they define GDP deflation?
So they look at what the gross domestic product inflation was in a year. So let's just say...
Is that for the state, for the county,
federal,
or for the federal?
Federal.
Okay.
So let's just say it's 3% per year. So that means the deflation factor is going to be 9%. They use a 3-year factor because there's a reappraisal every 3 years.
Okay, so it's 333 equals 9. So
it's 13 because, and I don't have the numbers handy, but it was, a
4.5. Or okay, gotcha.
Yep. And I don't know the answer. I mean, a question that I have is, there have been years in history where that number is a negative. I would assume that just means you would get 0 growth as a district, even if your property values were, double digit. But that'll be something we'll have to, there's still a lot of questions to be answered from this new legislation. So looking at the timing of the implementation of House Bill 186, this is not in effect for your first half property tax bill. So I think a lot of people are seeing their first half bill, it's significantly higher than what it was last year. This is fully going to be applied entirely against your second half tax bill. So what this means is your second half tax bill is going to be lower than your first half tax bill. I'm not saying that your taxes this year are going to be less than what you paid last year because property values went up and there's a new levy. But what I am saying is if you took your first half bill and said, I'm just going to multiply that by 2 and that's what I'm paying this year, that's a big number, it's going to be less because there will be a credit on your second half tax bill. That's going to be calculated by the Ohio Department of Taxation. So we won't know those numbers until probably April. So we're kind of doing the best we can with making our estimates. So we talked about the impact on the state funding, and in a previous meeting a few months ago, I talked about how we're kind of getting hit with a double whammy because of this bill. So in this bill 186, there is no school funding formula offset to adjust for the revenue cap. So if you think how the state funding formula works, it takes into account how much money you're getting from local tax revenues. So let's just say that we were going to get a $2 million increase in tax revenues because of inflationary increase in the 20 mil floor. So, but because of this bill, that cuts it in half. Now we're only getting $1 million. Okay, so the state funding formula still assumes we're actually getting that $2 million, which reduces our state share, but we're actually not getting that other $1 million. So we're losing money on the local side and we're losing money on the state funding side. That's something they used to call phantom revenue because this is a thing that's been in existence prior that they had fixed, but now it's back. So you're kind of getting a double loss. A second bill, House Bill 335, this bill would impact every district in the state. This provides a cap on growth on inside millage, so unvoted millage. So of our 20 mills, 4.7 of those mills are inside mills. Basically, inside mills work the same as when you're on the 20 mill floor. That's the way it's historically always worked. You get the full increase in tax revenues based on an increase in property valuation. What this bill does, it basically works exactly the same as 186, but it does it to the inside mills as well. So those inside mill, the growth on inside millage will be capped by that same GDP deflation factor. So if you take those two bills into play, basically it's our entire 20 mills now will be capped by that GDP deflation factor, which combines for an estimated loss of about $2.85 million annually.
That's to our district, a loss of 2.85 compared to our current forecast.
Correct.
From local revenue.
Yep.
And we would see that next year, Todd, that 2.85 million?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the first half taxes, that's where things get funky when you're looking at taxes are paid in a calendar year. We live in a fiscal year as a district, so first half taxes are basically the end of our fiscal year. So that second half, where that credit will be given and affect the tax bills, that will be the first part of fiscal year 27 for us on our fiscal year.
Question. So, am I understanding, like, currently they're not meeting the fair school funding formula, and we're also getting less because of these changes? Like, kind of a double hit?
Yeah, when we look at the forecast next month, you'll see that we're projecting our state funding in the formula to go down. We'll probably be what's known as a guarantee district, meaning we'll probably be, the formula would say we would even go even lower, but we'll just be capped and we'll get a guaranteed amount. And there's going to be a lot more districts on the guarantee. So the third and final bill that we're going to talk about, House Bill 129, this changes how they calculate the 20 mil floor. So previously, emergency levies did not count towards the 20 mil floor, which is why many districts passed emergency levies. So this bill now makes it so that emergency levies will be counted towards the 20 mil floor. So in essence, what that does is it takes us off of the 20 mil floor, which from a revenue standpoint, that means that when you're at the 20 mil floor, you see revenue growth when property values go up. But when you're off of the 20 mil floor, because of House Bill 920, property values go up, effective millage goes down, revenue stays the same. So from a forecasting standpoint, this will also decrease revenues. So due to the 5.5 mil levy that was passed, we wouldn't be on the 20 mil floor. This really won't impact us until the next reappraisal in 2028. But in that time, what that means is in around fiscal 29, we would lose about $2.5 million. So kind of laying the groundwork for a not great forecast we'll be presenting next month. But if you think about it, we just passed a levy that was supposed to generate about $6.8 million, and it will. And if we hadn't passed that levy, we would be in serious trouble. But if you consider the preschool that was added onto our plate after we had already approved or decided to go on the ballot, that ate up over around $3.5 million of the $6.8 million. You look at these other bills, they're going to basically wipe away the entire benefit of the levy. So that levy was supposed to be paying for SROs, the pay to participate fees, supposed to help with bringing our student-teacher ratio to a better number. But in essence, the levy has been wiped away by preschool and these legislative changes.
Before you move, I'm sorry, when I'm reading this slide, it says the House Bill 129, it takes effect after 2028, but we are already off the 20 mil floor. Am I hearing that correctly?
Well, the reason I say it doesn't take effect until 2028 is because 26 and 27 aren't reappraisal years, so there's really not going to be much change in valuation. So in those years, we wouldn't have seen any revenue increase other than new construction. So it's when the next reappraisal hits in 2028 when we would have probably been looking at another double-digit percentage increase that would be wiped away.
Understood. So are we currently on the floor, or you're saying we're no longer on the floor?
We're no longer on the floor.
Okay. What is do you know, or that will come next month?
Well, technically, it would have been 25.5 because we passed the 5.5 mil levy, but because of the property valuation increase, the 5.5 mil levy won't be collected at 5.5. So I don't know what that new number is yet, so we're probably around 24 point something.
Because it's a fixed sum levy. It's not a mill, like the mill is what the conversion was at that time.
Exactly.
But it's in reality, it's a fixed sum amount, and that can change, and with the reappraisals raising valuations, that millage goes down.
Exactly. The amount we receive stays the same, but the millage of the levy changes.
Understood, okay. So we're at like 20, you're saying we're off the floor now, and we're not seeing any increase, because one of the advantages when we were on the board of going with the emergency levy was because there would be some inflationary growth on top of the fixed sum levy. So that's wiped away.
Yes. And again, there will still be inflationary growth. It's just, it will be capped. So it's just significantly less than what it would have been.
Okay. Yep. Sorry for talking too much. I just wanted
No,
to
that's
clarify.
And then I just have a clarification question. So if we had went with an earned income tax, that would have been a moot point.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't have been a better result, but we would have still been on the 20 mil floor.
Right,
So
but
if
it
you
wouldn't have
think-
wiped away the 5.5 mil.
Well, when I say wiped away the 5.5 mil, that's more of a perspective, because we're still getting the revenue from the 5.5 mils. So I would look at it this way, to your point, and I'm not saying you're making it's not an invalid point, because at this point, an income tax would have been better. But having said that, if we would have went for an income tax, we would have looked at our forecast and said, because the same way we looked at it for the 5.5 mils, we're at the 20 mil floor, we're expecting growth in these future years, how much money do we need? Okay, so because we were assuming this growth by being at the 20 mil floor, we said, well, 5.5 mils will do the trick. We would have done the same thing with an income tax and said, well, because we're getting increased revenue on the 20 mil floor, maybe we only need half a percent or something like that. And so this wiping away the revenue growth from the 20 mil floor still would have had a detrimental impact, because we would have probably went too low on an income tax.
And if I may, I think something that we couldn't really forecast was the legislative changes and the specific impact that it had. And there's been a lot of legislative changes here in short order.
So when we looked at the earned income option, I think we were looking at 0.75% to maybe a 1%, and that kind of equated close to that 5.5 mil property tax. And so, but that the forecast also included the inflationary growth by being on the floor. So with the income, I mean, incomes are rising, so we don't know what the inflationary growth would have been necessarily for the income, but I think
So
that's my
ultimately what
understanding.
you're looking at, if you would say, I always forget the numbers. So House Bill 186, House Bill 335, and House Bill 129. If we would have went with an income tax, we would not have been impacted by House Bill 129, but we would still be impacted by 335 and 186. So the impact would have been less. And if you look at districts across the state, like I said, everybody's impacted by 335. Some districts are impacted by 186. Some districts are impacted by 129. We're impacted by all three. So we're getting hit more than most districts in the state. Oh, sorry to end on a bad note, but that's the end. So no happy slide at the end.
I just wanted to say, part of my legislative update here coming up is what Todd presented on those House bill changes and how it affects us. School funding in Ohio has been deemed unconstitutional 4 times, from 97 to 2002. And it always comes back to the same thing, that we're generating in Ohio too much revenue from property taxes to fund public education. I'm going to start being motivated, because I'm angry how this affects our community and our kids, to see if I can do more than just be a seat on the board at the local level, because this is unfair. And it's not fair to our kids. And all the kids I ever taught, or the kids I see in the community, I see their faces when I hear this. and we're robbing them. And it sickens me. And I'm going to use my seat and voice to try and help motivate legislation to do something about this. It's really sad.
Thank you. And anyone who's listening to this meeting or attending the meeting, this is our first kind of look at how this legislation is impacting us. I don't want anyone to be of concern. We have our 5-year forecast in February that we presented. And then Todd, I think you said in May we'll get like another update potentially just with some check-in. So nothing, I guess for people who are hearing this, is there anything that Dr. Howard or Treasurer Johnson wants to say just to, if anyone has concerns? I think we have some very fundamental issues that we have to advocate for at the State House in terms of funding. We have competing interests. We have property tax reform and school funding, and sometimes that's right now kind of at odds. But for anyone who's listening to this update, is there anything you want to say or just, I guess there's no action that we're taking now or in the immediate future. We just got to listen, process, and have a firm understanding of our financial outlook. And then in the future, we'll have to see what the future holds. So.
The only thing I would add that I forgot to mention is that it's very likely that they're not done with property tax reform legislation. I'm not saying that's going to make things better. I'm not saying it's going to make things worse, but there's more to come. So that's why I told Jermaine, we'll do the forecast in February. We don't even know, since the Department of Taxation is doing the credits, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We don't have to do a May forecast now by law, but we'll probably do a May forecast because we'll have more certain numbers at that point, and that would probably be more of a forecast to base decisions off of.
All right.
And just to tag on what Matt said, I mean, that was the main motivator for me to even run for this position, was to advocate for our citizens here in the district and for property owners. And so, like Jermaine said, for those who are listening, those who are here, I urge you to contact your legislators to push them for school funding reform and for property tax reform and things that make sense. These bills that they are proposing, once again, just make it more difficult and more convoluted, and it's not real reform. So, reach out to your legislators and push them to make common sense reform that benefit taxpayers and schools and just benefit all of us because what they're doing now doesn't do anybody any good. It just muddies the waters, so.
Well, on this note, we'll move on to the board president's report. Not that my report's going to be so exciting either, but it is a little bit of a transition. Obviously, we're just going to provide an update on our board vacancy. To recap, on January 5th, the Board of Education announced a vacancy and issued a call for applicants following the resignation of former board president Bill Keck. Just want to take this moment to encourage all members of our community to continue to keep Bill Keck and his family, his wife Gail, in our prayers as they go through that recovery. The deadline for applications to be considered for the vacancy was today at 4 p.m. As of now, the central office has received 9 applications. The following community members submitted their applications their names are Aaron McIntosh, Dick Smith, Krista Fairchild, Tana Lee Stoll, Leslie Phillips II, Adam Parker, Aaron Stonerock, Tyler Reed, and Jesse Withman. Tonight, after tonight's regular meeting, we will review all applications, determine eligibility, and select which candidates to move forward with and how we like to proceed. We have the following special meetings scheduled for applicant interviews, board discussion, and a possible appointment vote. Those meetings are scheduled on Monday, January 19th at 4 p.m., Wednesday, January 21st at 4 p.m., and Thursday, January 2nd at 4 p.m. Obviously, a meeting will be canceled if we do not need to use all 3. And that will be communicated through our district office. As a reminder, the appointed member will serve until January 1st, 2028, and the seat will be on the ballot in November 2027 for a 2-year term. So in November 27, you're going to see 2 board seats for a 4-year term and 1 board seat for a 2-year term. We must take action by Wednesday, February 4th, and I promise you, because some board members have some really interesting lives, they'll be out of town, we will be taking action most likely next week. Are there any questions from board members? I think we're all kind of caught up on this process. Next, we did have our community coffee this past Sunday. Members Keller and Mabry were present. Mr. Keller, would you like to give a brief update on the community coffee?
Sure. We had one guest, elementary parent with a special education concern. It was very good to listen to their perspective and their needs of their child. I'm confident Dr. Howard's working to make connections with his team and the family so that hopefully we can improve the situation for the child and the student. It was also nice to get a chance to get to know Mrs. Mabry when we didn't have a guest. I don't know if you have anything to add, Tanya, or not, but I appreciate those opportunities and the time that people give to come in and share, whether it is an opportunity for growth or it is a success, because we've had those moments too.
Thank you. Just giving a board update, we will, once we have a new member appointed or appointed member, sometime in late February, maybe early March, depending on everyone's availability, we will have a potential work session to review governance protocols, board community engagement plan, which is the community coffees is part of that, but just kind of what is our plan as a board, review our current board goals, the upcoming board presentation schedule, and potentially maybe the superintendent treasurer's goals. This is kind of the goals that they present to the board and we eventually evaluate them on, but there's no reason to wait till evaluation. We can get all level set on all those items before we make progress in this year. I also listed some Ohio School Board Association personal development opportunities. I know some of our newer members may be attending From Election to Action on January 31st to February 1st. There is a School Finance 101, What Districts Need to Know workshop in February 26th. And then another kind of a really good conference is Beyond the Basics, a masterclass for board members on March 7th. The Central Region Spring Conference will be on March 18th. And the State Legislative Conference, which I believe Matt and myself may be attending, along with anyone else who wants to go. We got to be careful about the number of board members, but it's an open a chance to hear another legislative update and then schedule some meetings with our representatives and state senator. And then lastly, back in 2000, I can't remember the date right now, but we adopted a strategic plan. And something I kind of want to incorporate in these meetings is either the mission statement or the vision statement so that we can be kind of grounded upon what is our strategic direction and what is our purpose as a Board of Education. So I'm just going to, for tonight, I'm just going to read the vision statement. That way we can reflect. And then maybe in the future we'll consider, do we recite this as a board together after the Pledge of Allegiance, or what do we want to do if we want to do anything with it? Our vision statement is, each child at Marysville Schools will be challenged, prepared, and empowered through innovation, collaboration, and inspiration. Innovation to ignite their curiosity, collaboration to strengthen their capacity, inspiration to empower their confidence, and fortitude toward the future. So I hope all of our meetings are in momentum to support this vision that we are all working towards. That concludes my report. Next is student achievement. Ms. Shepard.
Yeah, thank you. There were no updates from OSBA yet. I think we're kind of early on when they put those reports out, but I did want to mention on the bowling team, Delaney Sherwood set a school record this week in their match against Buckeye Valley. Brady Cordonier is a swimmer, and he broke another school record at a recent meet, and tonight was senior night for our swimmers. I did go to the beginning of the meet, and then I bailed and came here. Creekview's musical is coming up. They're doing Moana Junior. So January 30th, 31st, and February 1st. So grab your tickets and get out there and support our students. And then lastly, ECHS and BMS. Both worked on building that sense of community by having our students engage, our high school students engaged with the elementary schools as part of their class holiday parties. And then the Bunsold students made cards for the Union County Neighbor to Neighbor program and for some local nursing homes.
Thank you. Legislative report, Mr. Keller.
I'm going to try and be as concise as I can be with these. I did want to highlight again what Mr. Johnson shared and how it's affecting us. The recent changes from House Bill 129, 335, and 186. Also, there's one that was voted on in mid-December by Governor DeWine, House Bill 309. It's yet another opportunity where we could lose money from property taxes, where basically that work hard every day, and they may just have a bad day. And there's the Senate bill out there for students to be excused for mental health days. And I thought that could possibly be a good opportunity for some kids in the right situation. But it's something I thought I would share. I will probably always share in my legislative update a lot less than what's in my written report. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? All right, seeing none. We will move on to, we have the a recommendation to approve the draft minutes of December 11th regular meeting and January 5th, 2026 organization meeting as submitted. Do we have a motion?
All motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Ms. Shepherd? Yes. Ms. Mabry?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes. The motion's carried. Next, we have a motion or a recommendation to approve all treasurer and CFO action items.
All motion to approve.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved in second. Treasurer Johnson, do you want to provide any context or notes?
Yeah, it's our normal monthly items. The only thing I would point out, just as an FYI, you may remember last school year, the state mandated that all districts do the science of reading training. And as part of that, they offered funding reimbursement so that it would be of no cost to districts to provide that funding. Well, it turns out that they provided too much training and exceeded their budget. So instead of increasing the state funding budget to cover that difference, they clawed back money from every district in the state. So for us, that was a decrease of $22,700 in December. So.
Well, thank you for all the good news tonight.
sorry.
I really appreciate it. Are there any questions from board members? Hearing none.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Mabry?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes. Next, we have a recommendation to approve all superintendent action items.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll second.
It's been properly moved in second. Dr. Howard, would you like to update the board?
I would, thank you, board. I do have some good news. We've got 12 early graduates. Congratulations to those students that are listed. Additionally, board, you have your standing human resources items here in the spring as we prepare for the next school year. That you'll start seeing a lot more of this. But we have our standing volunteer listing. Again, thank you to our volunteers out there for getting in the buildings and assisting with our kids' education. We have an addendum to the coursework descriptions attached, and I will just briefly tout those. There's 4 courses that sort of scaffold on one another through the sequence. One is the emerging leader, and then the second is the developing leader. The third is the supervising leader, then finally the managing leader. Those would be the 4 courses we're asking the board to approve the addendum for. We also have a student field placement in school social work, so we're excited for that placement. And then we have 3 overnight trips that are listed on the agenda as well.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. Are there any questions from board members? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Now is the comments and questions from board members. We'll start with Ms. Shepherd.
Okay. I was just counting. It's like over 60 volunteers on that list. So that's awesome to have that many people stepping up and being inside of our school system and helping students and supporting staff. That's really great. I really enjoyed the presentation from the Mental Health Board tonight. I thought that was really good information, and I'm glad that things worked out and that's going to keep going. Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking forward to figuring out who's going to join us up here on this stage soon.
Mr. Keller?
Monday, students and staff enjoy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. What a lifelong skill. He taught us to stand up for something you believe in. I hope students take some time to reflect in the classroom and learn about some of the work that he did. Also, the weather's trying to slow us down, but I know that we're keeping up, so stay safe out there.
Thank you. Ms. Mabry?
Just to piggyback on Leanne's comment about mental health and recovery, that was an excellent presentation. I think that especially our young people really need some help out there. So many kids are struggling, and you know, I'm excited to hear what all they have to offer and that the funding is there. A lot of that information was new to me, so that was great information. So thank you for allowing them to come today. But I'm still getting my feet wet and still learning all of this and this process. So I'm just still really excited to be part of this and part of our community. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the regular meeting. We will have a recommendation to go in an executive session. Just for the audience awareness, there will be no official action taken tonight. There may be a communication from the district that comes out maybe tomorrow morning. Stay tuned. But we do have a recommendation to enter an executive session for the purpose of RSC 121.22 Golf 1 to consider the employment of a public employee or official. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
And I'll second.
It's been properly moved in second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. So we'll probably take a brief recess to relocate and use the restroom, but we are now in executive session at 7:45 p.m. Thank you.